Will you join me in prayer? Holy One, you came into our midst to be as we are, to grow as we do, to grieve as we must, that we might be more like you. So hear our words, lead our thoughts, break open our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, it's confession time, friends. Who asked the question? It's a great question. And as a not regular preacher, I've had the opportunity to reflect on it for quite a few months. John doesn't believe me because I was very late telling him what I was going to think about. But it is a question that I have been asking myself as I spend most of my time with 18 to 21-year-olds, as some of my friends have been welcoming infants into their families, as I stand more and more often on the edge of a grave and bid safe journey and greet old friends and family. As I was joking with Steve this morning, we all have a different perspective on the answer to that. So it seemed a bit risky to me to get up here and give you an answer. He suggested I lecture you on Fowler's Stages of Faith, and I decline. So you are fortunate. How does one's faith change with aging? As I've thought about it, listened, wondered, prayed, grieved, yelled, I think the answer, like many things, is it depends. Sermon done. Sometimes our faith and spirituality fade in the wake of challenge and pain, of war and agony. Sometimes they never change, and we remain childlike, hoping for magic, never discerning the difference between magic and miracle and love. The journey is never straight, and I love T.S. Eliot and Ms. Armstrong's image of a spiral staircase. T.S. Eliot, as a convert to Christianity, imagined a tower that went from here to wherever endlessly. And the journey was round and round and round. And he prayed, "Teach me to care and not to care in the midst of ashes and dust and love." Armstrong wrote about her own journey, seeking that straight line answer to God in a convent, where she became anorexic and mentally ill, and further from God than she'd ever been. But the idea of our life not as straight line, of our spiritual journey as walking a spiral staircase, has this amazing merit of knowing that we don't have to get there, because we're always there in that bounded space of our lives and this world in our mortality. And that what happens to us over the course of our lives depends on the point of our vantage. If you stood on any of those magnificent staircases that spiral around through a space, you know that the view from floor 1 to step 6 is the same, but radically different. It's a little scary as we rise to the top of the tower. Perhaps not always closer to heaven, but as someone has quipped, old age is not for sissies. Maya Angelou writes about it this way. She says, most people don't grow up. It's too damn difficult. What happens is most people get older. That's the truth of it. They honor their credit cards. They find parking spaces. They marry. They have the nerve to have children. But they don't grow up. Not really. They get older. To grow up costs the earth. The earth. It means you take responsibility for the time you take up, for the space you occupy. It's serious business. And you find out what it costs to love, to lose, to dare, to fail, and to succeed. Maybe even more to succeed. What it costs in truth. Not superficial costs. Anybody can have that. I mean, in truth. That's what I write, why I write. And Maya Angelou could write. Charles Taylor writes in a book called The Secular Age that we live in all generations and in all times in a socially constructed world that will pull our attention, that will demand our focus. He calls it an immanent frame. He says that the imposed attention in this age, that our immanent frame makes the divine action invisible. So much calls for our attention that we cannot see the miracle in our demand for magic, for instant gratification, for a cure, for something that happens in a nanosecond, for Wi-Fi access wherever we go. And so as I thought about this morning, I thought, what pushes us out of that immanent frame? What drags me back into the presence of the holy? And the answer for me is poetry. Poets who bring us amazing gifts, confuse the heck out of us, leave us with snippets and images and metaphors that shatter the immanent frame of credit cards and parking spaces and time. Atul Gawande is an American surgeon, writer, and public health researcher, and has written a book entitled On Being Mortal. I highly recommend it. He writes this about his understanding of aging and death. At least two kinds of courage are required in aging and sickness. The first is the courage to confront the reality of mortality, the courage to seek out the truth of what is to be feared and what is to be helped. Such courage is difficult enough. We have many reasons to shrink from it, but even more daunting is the second kind of courage, the courage to act on the truth we find. The problem is that the wise course is so frequently unclear. For a long while, I thought that this was simply because of uncertainty. When it's hard to know what will happen, it is hard to know what to do. But the challenge I've seen is much more fundamental than that. One has to decide whether one's fears or one's hopes are what should matter most. The answer to what happens to our spirituality and our faith depends. Aging and living requires deep courage. So I invite you to join me, to join some poets in reflecting on that courage. with an image of a spiral staircase in your minds, I invite you to listen. To Wendell Barry. For parents, the only way is hard. We who give life give pain. There is no help. Yet we who give pain give love. By pain we learn the extremity of love. I read of Christ crucified, the only begotten Son sacrificed to flesh and time and all our woe. He died, rose, but who does not tremble for his pain and loneliness in the darkness of the 6th hour? Unless we grieve like Mary at his grave, giving him up as lost, no Easter morning comes. The meaning of life does not live in what we achieve or build, but is found in how we live our lives, and how we grieve, and how we let go. Alice Walker, in a different vein, answers to a child, "What do you get for getting old?" She says, "I get to meditate in a chair or against the wall with my legs stretched out, or even in bed. I get to see maybe half of what I'm looking at. I have that problem. This changes everything. I get to dance like the tipsy old men who adored me when I was an infant. They never dropped me. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to ride a bicycle with tall handlebars, even in the Door County Century. My posture improves. I get to give up learning to sail, and I get to know I will never speak German. And I get to snuggle all morning with my snuggler of choice, counting the hours by how many times we get up to go pee. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to eat chocolate with my salad or even as a first course. I get to forget. I get to paint with colors I mix myself, colors I've never seen before. I get to sleep with my dog and pray to never outlive my cat. I get to play music without learning a note. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to sleep in a hammock under the same stars wherever I am. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to laugh at all the things I don't know and cannot find. I get to greet people I don't remember as if I know them very well. After all, how different can they be? I get to grow my garden in a few small pots. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to see and feel the suffering of the whole world and take a nap when I feel like it anyway. I get to spend time with myself whenever I want. I get to feel more loved than I ever thought existed. Everything seems made of the stuff. I feel this especially for you. And though I may not remember exactly which you are, how cool is this? I still get to spend time with myself whenever I want. And that is just a taste, as the old people used to say down in Georgia when I was a child, what you get for getting old. And Mary Oliver reflects, that time when I thought I could not get any closer to grief without dying, I went closer, and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among the lions, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief. It's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it. When you cannot and would not put it down. So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind, and maybe also troubled. Roses in the wind. The sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply. Arab-American poet Naomi Shihab reflects on the possible impact of a journey of loss and grief. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand and counted and carefully saved, all this must go. So you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of grief, you must travel where the Indian in the white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you. How he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must also know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the threads of all sorrow and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is you I have been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. How does aging change our faith and spirituality? It depends. Sometimes, as our poets note, our faith and spirituality become a core that lead us from the complex, from the vanity of knowledge and wisdom of things, to simplicity, deep kindness, and love. And when that happens, I think we can say with Mary Oliver, someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. So may it be.